And we are live, guys. Welcome to another live stream from the Men of High Value channel. My name is Joseph Darling. Today we are talking about masculinity and manhood, manliness. If our name of the channel is going to be man, we got to understand what it is to become a man. What is the goal of this life? It's to become men. Okay? That's the whole goal of this channel. If you are the epitome of a man, you've made it. That's the entire goal of our lives, guys. To get to the point where you literally, in our definition, have control over your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. And you're able to be consistent in showing up consistently over a long period of time in order for you to get exponential growth in abundance in every single aspect of life. That's being a man. To stand up for what you believe in with character, with integrity, and with virtue. That is being a man. Masculinity is being attacked at all fronts these days. But it's only because the world doesn't understand what it is to be a man. Because if the whole world knew and understood these principles, men would do it. Because they'd understand the rewards that come from being a man. There would be no talk of toxic masculinity. Women wouldn't be complaining. In fact, if men were actually men, there wouldn't even be feminism. Because we as men have the keys to establish peace amongst the genders. We have what it takes in order for us to control our environment. And it's all about example. I just wanted to start with basically the regular poor, very poor definitions that Wikipedia and Google and whatever of what they have on the word masculine. And then we can begin to explore this a little bit more. But that was a pretty good introduction. Okay, so it reads, masculinity, also called manhood or manliness, is a set of attributes, behaviors, and roles associated with boys and men. Okay, so this is basically what the world, it's up for grabs. What does the world really think about what masculinity is? Okay, if the world says that this is masculine, I guess this is masculine. No. There are certain things that by principle, by the nature of that thing, makes a man masculine. If it fits into the explanation that I had in the beginning, you can be able to know that that's masculine. I'm going to explain a little bit more throughout this video, but let's just continue. Masculinity, Google. Qualities or attributes regarded as a characteristic of men. Okay, and they use the example handsome, muscled, and driven. He's a prime example of masculinity. Okay, so those were some pretty good definitions. We also have below here similar. Virility. Okay, good. Manliness, vigor, strength, muscularity. Okay, so very often people talk about, muscles, right? That's what it means. You see the muscles here, masculinity, muscle, muscle, muscle. There's like all about muscle. Is that what masculinity is? No, it's not. Not at all. In fact, my definitions doesn't even include being buff and tough and whatever it is. However, that is a part of being a man. At one point in your prioritization of becoming a man, it is crucial that you get a fantastic body. Because, can you really be truly a man if you don't have that? No, you can't, right? But there are some things when it comes to being a man that are even more important. Crucially more important than physical strength. Because your physical strength you're going to lose eventually. It's kind of like money. Money doesn't make you a man just because you've got cash. Right? Now, if you have the ability to get as much money as you want, and you're able to keep it, that could be a sign of manhood. That's way more a sign of manhood than actually having cash. Does that make sense? In the same way, having an amazing body. That's not what it means to be a man, but developing the consistency over time to get that kind of a body. Now you can say that is being a man. So you understand how it's more about the discipline and who you are becoming in the process that has to do with masculinity and being a man, rather than the actual results, even though the results matter. But it's the progression of things that in many ways matter the most. It's the one that progresses the fastest and does so in sustainably, right, is the one who is most masculine in many aspects, right? The one that grows the fastest in a sustainable manner is the one that's most masculine. Again, we'll go further into this. Masculine, original, let's see, etymology. Okay, masculine, of men, male sex, let's see, worthy of a man. Okay, good. Okay, we didn't get much out of this one. Let's do, I thought this was extremely interesting. Virtue. Virtue. Like when you think about virtue, do you think of men or do you think of women? Oh, women need to be virtuous. Let's look at this. Virtue, moral life and conduct, a particular moral excellence. Virtu, force, strength, vigor, moral strength, qualities, abilities. You know what power, the definition of power is the ability to do. Does that sound masculine to you? Absolutely. Moral strength, high character, goodness, manliness, valor, bravery, courage, excellence, and worth. Wow. See, and then they begin to talk about women from the 1590s. But before that, it was all about men. If men are virtuous, man. That what I've always said on this channel is that if women, like, who is it that initiates sex? It's very interesting to think about. It's always the man, right? Pretty much. Like 95% of the time, it is a man who initiates sex. Now, women are becoming extremely masculine these days, so things are changing a little bit there, and the statistics are becoming a bit skewed. But 95% of the time, we could say men are the ones who initiate. Which means men are the ones who are complaining all the time that women are too loose, women are too easy, women are too this, that, and the other, and if only they would keep it, blah, blah, blah. It's all men's fault. The reason why is because that if men were virtuous, and if they actually practiced moral, okay, what does moral even mean? It's doing the right thing. Well, what's the right thing? Well, that's what I'm telling you on this channel right now. Moving towards masculinity is the right thing. But what I'm saying in terms of virtue is that it requires discipline. It requires focus. It requires patience. It requires delayed gratification. It requires responsibility. That's virtue. So in many ways, okay, this is where you, vir. You see this? Where does vir comes from? That's what it means to be a man. You see that? Vir means man. Dang. That's insane when you think about it. But it makes sense, because if you look at virility, we know what virility is. Basically means that, you're capable of sexual intercourse and procreation. So look at it. Virilite, from Latin, virilitatem, I guess. Manhood. Of a man, manly, worthy of a man. Man, hero. From vir. Virtue, virility. It's combined. Meaning, power of procreation, capacity for sexual intercourse, manly strength. Just because you have the capacity to do it, right? Virility. If you have the virtue to control that capacity, that makes you even more of a man than someone who is capable of having sex. That doesn't require a lot, right? But if you have virtue, that's powerful. That's power. Okay, so I just wanted to give you guys some kind of introduction of what masculinity truly is all about. And I want you to kind of imagine life as an exponential growth curve, okay? Everything has an exponential growth curve. You want the exponential growth curve in order for you to get abundance in every single aspect of your life. So let's say your relationships, for example. Your relationships are basically connections you have with other people that basically makes or breaks your amount of happiness, joy, and bliss in your life. Relationships are extremely important if you're going to have a happy life. And if you're unhappy, you're not masculine. Because unhappiness shows that you're not able to control your thoughts, you're not able to control your emotions, you're not able to control your behaviors. Because if you were, you do those things that would actually create wonderful relationships between you and other people, right? So it's feminine to have bad relationships with other people. It's masculine to have the wisdom, to have the understanding, to have the knowledge of what it takes in order for you to be skilled with people. So if you're a man, a true masculine man, you would have fantastic relationships. And if you have fantastic relationships, you have great connections, that means that over time you're going to get depth in all of those relationships because you never do anything that's going to destroy that relationship, right? A man's word, a man's integrity, a man's moral compass, again, doing the right thing by people is going to give you fantastic relationships. So men, by nature, if they are masculine, they will be happy. They will have connections, connecting with other people easily because they know what it takes in order for them to be trustworthy and honorable and integral. That's what connects people to you, right? Trust is more important than love. If you are trustworthy, then you are masculine. People gravitate towards you. You're like a magnet, right? You're absolutely awesome. And so when people gravitate towards you, you know that you're a man. Not necessarily, though, because there's tons of feminine guys who manage to attract people to them. But very often, the people that they attract are feminine people, right? That are not going to stay there for very long. Because feminine guys are not consistent. Feminine guys are not loyal. Feminine guys are in many ways hypergamous. Just like women. They give you up for a better deal in the future, right? A masculine man will attract people who are masculine and who will stick. And why would you want people in your life that don't stick, right? For the long run. A masculine man thinks long term. He thinks big. He thinks massive. Because he understands the past, the present, and the future, right? Because if he's feminine, he's not going to care about the past. He's not going to care about the future. It's all about being in the now. It's all about instant gratification. It's all about feeling emotions. Masculinity is about rationality, logic, and understanding that this now is just one of billions of nows in the future. Right? 32 years is 1 billion seconds. A now is a second. Okay, so a feminine man will be all about how can I, alleviate my emotions? How can I make my emotions feel better? Right? I feel bad. I need to do something quickly in order for me to feel good. That's feminine. It's focused on this second right here, or the next 1,000 seconds, or the next 10,000, or maybe even 1,000,000 seconds, right? But he's only thinking about those 1,000,000 seconds. He's not thinking about the thousands upon thousands of millions of seconds that he has in his future. Like, who cares about that? That's feminine. Do you understand what I mean by now thinking big, thinking long term? Masculinity is willing to lose the battle in order for him to win the war. Femininity does the opposite. They want to win the battle at all costs because of, their pride or whatever it is. A guy in the bar. A masculine man wouldn't even be in the bar, right? He wouldn't be drinking. He wouldn't be smoking. He wouldn't be doing drugs. He wouldn't be sleeping around with girls randomly, right? Because he's masculine. He understands that there are consequences for the things that he does. And if he does some things that are bad for him in the short term, then he could become addicted to those things, and that could create exponential decline in every single aspect of his life. That would be feminine. So a masculine man will stay away from environments that are incredibly tempting, that basically give you a spike of feel-good right now, but then destroys you in the long run, right? A masculine man would stay away from porn. He'd stay away from masturbation. Why? Because of discipline, because of understanding the long-term picture. Feminine men can't control themselves. That's one of the biggest problems in the world today, are feminine men. They're the ones that are screwing up and screwing over everything. The more men move towards masculinity, the better this world becomes. We will create heaven on earth if men become more masculine. But then again, we have to understand the definitions, right? So, I was talking about the exponential growth curve in every single aspect of life. I was speaking about relationships. That if you're masculine, you have fantastic relationships, which means that you've got connection, which means that you have happiness, which means that you've got joy, bliss, and you've got peace. Man, there's something amazing about the word peace. If you as a man have peace in your life, that means that you have security. And very often that security comes from confidence, right? Confidence comes from the fact that you have a high self-worth and you know that other people got your back. Because you've got their back. You're trustworthy, so the people around you are trustworthy. That gives you security. That gives you self-worth. That gives you value. So that's relationships. We move on to... I could say so much more on the relationship part. I was thinking about doing that at the end, but I can do a bit more about it. Masculinity is leadership. Very often people think that it's you know, if you're on your own and you're a loner, that's when you're masculine. Not so. Not at all, actually. Because a leader understands that the sum of all parts, you know, if he's masterminding with another person, the sum of both parts creates more than two. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like you create a mastermind as a masculine man, you will attract other masculine men, and that will be a team. And because you're a leader and you think long term and you think integrity, trustworthiness, etc., you build around a team of people who think the same way. When you do that, that's way more powerful than one person doing his own thing. Does that make sense? So your goal as a man is to eventually become a leader of men. A leader of 10 men, 100 men, 1,000 men, 10,000 men, 100,000 men. Like, why would you not become a leader of millions of men? In many ways, that should be your ambition as a masculine man. If you don't have that ambition, you're not masculine. Masculinity is ambition and motivation. Having a drive towards a grand picture that you have for yourself. Masculinity in many ways is also selfish. But if you're truly, purely selfish in a masculine way, you'll be selfish towards the group. You'll be selfish towards making sure that you create win-win situations. Okay? With other people so that you can together progress forward in the right direction. Now keep this away from the collectivity of, politics and all that stuff and collectivism. That's feminine, massively. Masculinity is, self-reliance. Focusing on yourself and your family and your property, but making sure that you also take care of those that take care of you. Does that make sense? And keeping that as decentralized and close to each other as possible. Another aspect of relationships, really, is being a father. I don't know how to stress this one, but very often men these days are beginning to shy away from responsibility. I'm not saying get married. Actually, I have a video saying 100 reasons why you should not get married. Go watch it. Okay? I'm not saying that. But, however, being a man means that you should. Okay? You, as a masculine man, you'll understand the value of eventually, at one point, having a family of your own. Unfortunately, today's world are promoting monogamy, which is warped, okay? Which is completely based upon ignorance, because, and now I'm not talking about sleeping around, because that's worse. That's horrific. That's destroying society. We're not about that. But monogamy destroys society as well over time because the woman has control in that relationship, always. Man is the head, but the woman is the neck. She turns the head, right? And so to be a masculine man means that you take upon yourself the responsibility of multiple women, but only for lifelong commitment. Only. You take upon yourself a woman, then you should be taking care of her for the rest of your life if you're going to be sexually involved. And I would say max 3, but that's for discussion for another day. And once you have these women, masculinity is loyalty and sticking within the boundaries of that relationship. Just as you want her to stay within the boundaries and not have relationships, sexual relationships outside of this union, you should never, ever go outside of that either, right? That would not be masculine. Femininity is the one that can't control their emotions, their behaviors, blah, blah, blah. Masculinity wants long-term consistency and depth and growth of the relationship. So he's going to stick within the boundaries that are set. Does that mean that he needs to be monogamous? No. He should have 3, in my opinion. But at one point in the future, not before you've set up a proper foundation whereby you know that you will be able to provide for them, to protect for them, and be there for them, and make sure that they have everything that they need in terms of food, shelter, clothing, and entertainment, right? So that you can also become a father. One of the ultimate things that we do as men is to bring forth children in our image. Wow, that's amazing. What happens when you bring forth children, when you become a father? You literally have sons now who have the capacity of becoming better than you. What's more masculine than that? Reproduction of your awesome masculine qualities. And then it's up to you to shape that child to become wise and to grow up and do the things that he was supposed to do. And if you are people skilled and you know how to lead, guess what? He'll follow in your footsteps, but actually be better than you were. Why does that happen? If you are a good parent, that's what's going to happen. If you're a horrible parent, which is what most people are, then the kids are going to rebel in their teenage years and they're going to follow a different path because their parents are not happy. If their parents were freaking happy, they lived in a manner of happiness, they had joy, they had bliss, they had fantastic relationships, don't you think that the teenagers would follow in their footsteps? They would, okay? Yeah, maybe they'll experiment, whatever, but they'll always return because everyone wants to be happy. And if you're living according to masculine principles, your sons will eventually live according to masculine principles, and they'll fail less than you because of time, because of evolution. You have more, you learned from your father, who learned from his father, who learned from his father, hopefully. If there's a chain of events, a chain of fatherhoods going on, then your child should have the wisdom of not only his father, you, but he should have the wisdom of his grandfather through you as the father, and the wisdom of the great-grandfather, and the wisdom of the great-great-grandfather if we actually write things down and bring wisdom down throughout the generations, which means that we evolve towards a better world and a better society and better families and better leaders and better everything eventually. People don't think about this, but this is what masculinity is. Delayed gratification, sexual discipline. In my opinion, if you masturbate, if you ejaculate, you're feminine. Of course, ejaculations are going to happen. I'm not saying that you should never, ever, ever ejaculate, but if it happens more than once a month, or more than once every 90 days, or more than accidents, or more than, you having kids and all that stuff, or more than the women desire, you're not practicing discipline. And if you're not practicing discipline when it comes to sexual matters, you're being feminine. Masculinity is to keep it in your pants until it is the right time. And once it is the right time, you don't waste your essence, because that is your life force, but it's also directly connected towards your testosterone and your masculinity and manliness. How masculine do you feel after having ejaculated? You feel like crap. You feel powerless, right? You don't feel like you have massive amounts of power after ejaculations, so you should keep it in. It requires discipline for sure, but everything that has to do with masculinity will give you an exponential growth of abundance in every single area of your life. Okay, I've truly explained masculinity in terms of relationships very well now. And also voluntary celibacy, of course. That's what I mentioned. So you can know for sure that players, guys that sleep around with multiple women, are extremely feminine. It is not masculinity, none whatsoever, because they're all about immediate gratification, instant gratification. I gotta have it now, right? And they're screwing everyone over, especially those women. They're screwing over themselves because they're never gonna feel, happiness, joy, and love and depth in relationships, because when you fall into that trap of sleeping around, you end up wanting that spike all of the time instead of exploring getting depth with women. Okay, you instead only get the shallow player aspect to it, and then you end up not getting the benefits of consistency and showing up for a long period of time to get that exponential growth phase in relationships. Anyway, moving on. Health. Okay, now we can come to like strength, vigor, etc., etc. Optimal health. That's what masculinity is. Yes, you can have fantastic muscles, but if you're on steroids, or you're taking stuff or drugs or like things that give you spikes of testosterone or spikes of this and spikes of that, you can know for sure that your body is not built for that, and it will decline exponentially over time, or give you cancers or whatever it is. I'm just saying that if you have optimal health, if you've got an optimal sex drive, if you got a high testosterone levels, you may know for a fact that you are masculine or on your way towards masculinity as you consistently grow towards that. In terms of work, okay, that has to do with health as well. If you're only able to work 4 hours a day or 20 hours a week, you're not masculine, you're feminine. How able are you to serve other people? Can you work 60-hour work weeks? 80-hour work weeks? Now we're beginning to move towards masculinity. Doing stuff that you don't feel like doing, even though you don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway. That's masculinity. In many ways, you guys know all of this stuff. It's just that I'm reminding you of the things that you've known from before. Someone who's dying is moving towards femininity. The universe has made a genius plan whereby, we become men and then we die. Like we become men and then eventually we become feminine and then we die. The whole point is to keep yourself alive as long as possible, as healthily as possible. But very often that comes from a mental attitude, way more so than only food and exercise, okay? Mental positive attitude has a lot to do with your masculinity. Again, I've said it earlier, if you can control your thoughts, you can control what you think about. If you can control what you think about, that means that you can actually have a consistent positive attitude all of the time. People think that, oh, bro, that's impossible, man. Like, I can't even get out of my depression right now. It's because you're feminine. If you're masculine, you're able to control your thoughts. You can control your thoughts, you can control your emotions. And if you control your emotions, guess what? You can be fired up outside your brain all of the time. Will there be times when you fail? Of course, because we're all feminine. But the reason why we fail is because we're feminine, not because of some other reason. There's always a reason, right? For everything that happens. If you suck at life, if you get depressed, if you ruin a relationship, if your health declines, if you get a disease, if you get whatever it is, if something's wrong with your life, it's because you're feminine. To just call a spade for a spade. That's what it is. So you have to learn to gravitate now against ignorance and all of the problems that you've attracted into your life, and blame yourself that this is your fault. You attracted this by remaining in your femininity. Yeah, you could blame your parents. You could blame you not having a father, or maybe blame your father if you had one. You could blame everyone else. But guess what? It's all your fault, right? If you're feminine. Because you should have grown up from the age of 12. It's time to grow up now. And if you grow up, you're moving towards masculinity. And we need a lot of men to grow up in today's society. The cool part about it, though, is that if you do grow up and you choose to grow up with these principles that I teach you, guess what? You'll be one of the few, which means there's massive room at the top. Okay? When people are applying for jobs, just giving you an example of there's plenty of room at the top. Who do you think applies for, how many people do you think applies for the low-skilled jobs? Those are the ones that most people apply for. And then there's basically like 15 people applying for leadership positions. Yeah, maybe it's because they're not qualified, but it doesn't hurt to not to apply, right? Do you understand what I mean? Like, there's plenty of room at the top. In the same way, if you move towards masculinity, there's plenty of room. Like basically you'd be one of the few who are actually masculine, and people are going to massively gravitate towards you. Okay, so that was health. Let's go towards financials, because there's 3 categories of life. I keep it simple: relationships, health, and finance. In terms of financials, understand that masculinity is all about capital. Capitalism. Why? Just like I explained about relationships. A man who's masculine will lead other men, which means that the more masculine he becomes, the more men he's able to lead, which means that that's basically what capitalism is. You hire people, you lead people, and then you elevate humanity at the same time, right? The more you're able to hire others, the more masculine you are in many ways. So you've got to learn how to become masculine and think big in terms of having of living the capitalistic lifestyle in your life. If you're a socialist, you're feminine. Okay? You got to understand that. And I'm not talking about the election and all that crap that's happening right now either, because both parties are feminine. Why? Because they both believe in big government. Big government is feminine. Why would you want big government when you can be self-reliant and you can take care of those that you love and everyone else can do the same? Right? It's not very expedient. It's not very efficient, and it requires force in order for the government to achieve their purposes. Anything that involves force is feminine. Which brings me back to one other thing that I haven't mentioned enough. Like, this video becomes long. I don't care how long this video becomes. I'm kind of late as well. I gotta go to bed. But I want you guys to understand these principles once and for all. Listen to me 2.0x, right? Listen to me fast so that you can get this inside your brain. The only masculine way of politics is to believe in as low or as minimal of government as possible. On the way towards creating heaven on earth, we basically, like, when there is heaven on earth, that means that everyone are applying universal laws, meaning that they're not injuring other people and they're not forcing other people to do what they want them to do, right? Because then they need to be forced back, which means that we need a police, we need a judiciary system, we need a military. Because if people can't control themselves and they basically force each other, then we need to have a middleman that comes in and breaks them up and puts the person who did the wrong thing in jail or whatever to protect the rest of them, right? So in the future, though, when everyone is applying the correct truths and laws that are universal, then we won't need police or judiciary system or military, right? But until then, we need to have it. So I understand that we need to have government, but it needs to be extremely Limited. That's it. Police, military, and judiciary system. No more. And yet today in many, developed countries like Norway, for example, 1/3 of every single employed person in Norway works for the government. There's something extremely wrong about that. It's feminine. Okay, we gotta understand that. Okay, so I was talking about, so what is masculine about financials? Well, incentive, the profit incentive, that's masculine. Okay, motivation, ambition, abundance, riches, desire for more, desire for abundance is masculine. If you're one of the guys who believe that, oh, money is not important, or, you shouldn't desire too many things, or like you subscribe to those gurus that say that, oh, you'll be masculine when you don't desire anything. That is perfection. Like, what the freak? That's ridiculous, okay? Because desire is what creates goals. And masculinity is all about goals. Because it's setting a goal and then achieving it. And once you achieve it, before you achieve it even, you set a new goal so that you can achieve it. And then you set a new goal so you can achieve it. And that's basically the way of the man. The way of the superior man, masculinity in general. It's goal setting. So if you are taking desire out of the equation, you are killing the man. That's basically, you're cutting off his balls and making him docile. And making him like his feminine. Do you understand what I mean? That we've been given 10 to 12 times more testosterone than women for a reason. For desire, ambition, right? But when you ejaculate and let it go, you don't have that anymore. That's why you need to retain it. Because if you do, it's like your masculinity is gonna come to the surface automatically. Semen retention, man, it's freaking awesome. Okay, what else? Providing for yourself, etc., etc. Being a freedom fighter. If you don't fight for freedom, in many ways, in my opinion, if you don't fight for Bitcoin, if you don't fight for hard money, if you believe in the fiat system, the horrible things that the governments are doing in terms of monetary fiscal policies and whatever that, it's feminine. Masculinity is believing in hard money. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, right? That's masculine. And of course, you can do different, there's wealth cycles and all that stuff, but I'm not going to go into that. Self-reliance, etc., etc., etc. Leave me alone. And I'll leave you alone. That's masculinity. Okay, what else? I think I'm just going to finish off there. I just want you guys to understand the definitions one more time. It's exponential growth. We want abundance in every single category of life. One woman is not enough. You need 3. But you need them at the same time, and you need them after you've set up a huge financial cushion and foundation, and you also have learned and understand female nature. If you don't understand female nature, you should not get involved. Hire a coach to understand female nature. Because if you don't, you're going to screw it over. And if you screw it over, you're being feminine. If you're masculine in a relationship, you know exactly what to do to retain her. And she will be happy in that relationship. If she's unhappy in your relationship, that means you suck. That means you're feminine, right? Every single thing that doesn't work in your life is because you're feminine. When you are masculine, everything just magically works, man. It's like everything just become attracted to you. It's like, whoa, that guy's high value. Whoa, check out this guy. He's doing this, that, and the other. Man, that guy has extreme amounts of ability to do. Power. Right? What we want as men is power. Nothing wrong with that as long as you do it with integrity and honesty and serving others. Power's awesome. Get towards it. Move towards it every single day. Better ability to do. Right? You want tons of money. That's masculine. Not wanting money is feminine. Repeating myself. Monogamy is feminine. Sleeping around is feminine. Involving women in your life is feminine. Masculinity is, okay, when I say involving women that you're not going to provide for the long term, okay? Both sexually and financially. Believing that your women should work is feminine, right? Why would they need to work if you're a man? A man provides, and he provides extremely well because he always produces way more than what he needs, which is what he gives to his women and his children, and then he reinvests the rest in order for him to continue to grow his wealth. In terms of health, optimal health is masculine. Not being healthy is feminine. And all the other things that I could just mention. Anyway, exponential growth, guys. Consistency. Over a long period of time, being able to control your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors is masculine. I hope that you got tons out of this video. Again, it was massively all over the place. I got to make these videos more and more and more so that you guys can get the gist of what I'm trying to tell you guys when it comes to masculinity. Because once you've cracked that code of understanding what true masculinity is, it solves everything. Like you get a purpose in your life. You get direction. If it's the one thing that men lack in this life today, it's direction. It's purpose. They don't know what their purpose is. Right? Masculinity. It's the only thing that should be on a man's mind. I want to become masculine. Because if he does, he's going to be rewarded with everything in life that he desires. But the cool part is that he's also going to keep it. And what's better than that? This is the Men of High Value channel. Thank you so much for watching. Let's see. I've learned something. Thank you, Joseph. Polygyny is not sin according to the Torah. According to the Torah, adultery is a man sleeping with another man's wife. Completely agree. Force versus power. Smaller government, bigger citizens. Absolutely. In America, we need to get rid of Federal Reserve. Absolutely. End the Fed. Some really great names there is George Gammon. Fantastic YouTube channel. Go check him out. Robert Kiyosaki, Peter Schiff. There's some really great guys. And also Valuetainment is also a great guy. Gold standard is key to small government. Yes, somewhat. But what we found out with gold standard is that the government never sticks to it. So they can say that they're sticking to the gold standard, but then they actually don't. This is what happened with Nixon in 1971, is that they were supposedly on the gold standard, but they weren't. Because the politicians were basically playing games with the gold, and there was no gold anymore, so they had to basically cut off the gold standard. So it's nice to think about the gold standard, and yes, it would be awesome, but I really, really believe in Bitcoin. But gold is a good start. So, I just wanted to say one more thing. What do you guys think? Let's do a quiz at the end here, okay? I'm gonna tell you some things, and then you guys tell me whether it's feminine or masculine. Drinking alcohol, feminine or masculine? Comment down below. Smoking, is it feminine or masculine? Weed, feminine or masculine? Right? All of those things that lead to addiction and instant gratification is feminine. Okay? So just remember that. Violence, feminine or masculine? Right? Oh, sometimes you gotta use violence. Yes, sometimes, but it's feminine. Masculinity would be to practice self-defense. Masculinity is understanding gun ownership, having a gun. In my opinion, you have to have a gun if you're masculine. You can't be because if you don't have a gun, then do you understand what I mean? Obviously, you got to do it safely. Obviously, you got to do it according to the law. Obviously, etc. All that stuff, right? But that's part of it. Because if not, you become powerless in the situation where someone else has a gun and you don't. And if you want to have power at all times, just saying, okay? Another aspect is, yes, martial arts. That's masculine if you don't use it for feminine purposes, right? It's masculine if you can defend yourself and be a massive man of power when it is necessary. But discipline in keeping that in for yourself and having that as your own secret, that you can kick anyone's trash any day, that's masculine, and having that secret. Anyway, just wanted to wrap things up with that. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are absolutely awesome. I will see you in the next one.